welcome to today's stream. My name is Guy, of course, and well, the show today is going to be a little different. We're changing things up. Life is so busy. How's my audio? Let's start there. Is the audio a bit soft? It looks a bit soft. I'm going to crank that up. Let's see if we can get the arm over a bit more. There we go. There we go. Right. How are we? How are we all doing today? I hope you're all good. I've seen some people are ill. I've seen some people who don't have their role-playing group who've joined them. I hate it when that happens. Usually one or two can make it, and then it's board games, which is, you know, not as fun, but sometimes it can be. It is really hot in my studio today. I don't know why. So if there's a bit of a low rumble in the background, it's because I've got all of these cooling fans on. The aircon is at max, but, well, it's just hot in Tokyo. What can I say? This little room that I have, of course, as my studio, is the one that faces the sun all day long, so it never really cools down. Anyway, all right, so we've got a lot of stuff to get through today. No demonstrations of products for today anyway, except that I have got so much on my plate for this week. This week is like everything must be done. So I am really racing it, and the Web Goblin and I had a big conference meeting on Sunday where we're talking about the future of the channel, what we want to see happening, all that kind of cool stuff. And well, one of the things that came up was that I'm basically working 7 days a week, which is quite a lot. And you go, well, what on earth is he working on? Well, it's all of the books and things that I'm busy been creating, and life is good doing that. I'm not complaining. But as the Web Goblin said, sometimes you do just need a little break. So with Descent into Avernus Blood War kicking off on the Twitch channel this Saturday, I'm busy with all that kind of stuff. The music that we've got composed for the show. I've been working with the composer of the weekend. He has done an amazing job, Darren Curtis. I'm hoping you're going to see him more often on the channel in terms of all of the music that he's busy working on. So that's a big thing. It's really a lot of fun when you're working with a composer and you're going, well, I want a bit more of that and a little bit of that and a little bit of this. I actually sing in the latest one. No, that's a lie. I don't sing. I don't sing at all. I'm terrible at singing. But I perform in the latest music for Descent into Avernus. So that should be a lot of fun. The first show is this Saturday, 12 p.m. We've moved an hour earlier so that if we need to, we can go a little bit longer than just the fixed 2-hour cutoff point. So that's a lot of fun. And so, yeah, we have got lots of things going on. So to the point, this show is going to go from 2 hours down to 1 hour. I know that is absolutely terrifically bad, but because it happens in the middle of my day here in Japan, it means that it's very, well, I can't arrange stuff before and I can't arrange stuff afterwards, and I have a lot of work to do this week. So this week it's a 1 hour. Next week maybe still a 1 hour. I have just received word, and this is something that's incredibly important for me, so I'm going to share it with you guys because I see the same names every week, and I consider you guys to be someone that I socialize with. I've just received confirmation that I am now officially a British citizen. So all I need to do now is go to a ceremony at the embassy here in Tokyo, pledge allegiance to the Queen. I do find it quite fantastical to be required to go and, you know, almost bend the knee for the Queen so that I might join her realm, but that is the outcome. Now, what are the implications of that? Will I still be in Japan next year? Won't I be in Japan next year? There's so many things going on, I don't know. Now, of course, moving, as they say, is one of the most stressful things that you can do. I don't think so. I love moving, I love changing locations, I love meeting new people. So for me, I'm kind of looking forward to it. But I am a little bit of someone who likes to rush things. So I don't know. The future is cloudy, but it's a good future. So that means lots of things going to be happening. Now, we're also kicking off a new show, a new series. Will launch in October. We're recording it in September. We're going to do the whole thing before we then release it, and that's going to be super exciting for you guys as well. So much stuff is happening in the Great GM space. I think it's going to be beneficial for all of you. Okay, so let's get on with what are we doing today? What are we talking about? Well, we've got our usual questions, and questions are already starting to come through. If you are new to the stream, please put the giant word question in front of it. Put the word question in front of it so that I can see that it's a question, and then I will try to answer. But as you can see, these kind of scroll through quite quickly, so sometimes it's a bit tricky for me to catch them and to find them. Okay. Right, so first question that I can see on my board is from Xander the Green. When you're finished with the nautical book, will you do the same with Ariel, Subterranean and Astral, or Aerial I should say, Aerial, Subterranean and Astral combat? Well, I don't want to sound presumptuous, and I don't want to sound as if we are the next best thing in terms of book release and the like. However, Nautical Campaigns is now at the point where effectively it's finished. All I need to do is translate it into the layout that we're going to be using, and a fan of the show very generously helped us with the layout in InDesign. It's a heck of a process to translate it across. It's going to take me about 20 days to do it. The artwork, I've commissioned the artwork from an artist who's from Macedonia, just near that Greece Central European area, I suppose Central Southern European area, and they're going to be working on the artwork of the ships, and that's actually something we're going to be doing on today's stream as well. Because we're going to have sketches of the ships, as well as the floor plans, the deck plans of the ships, there's a parallel that needs to happen. We need to know what they're going to look like before we can build the deck plans, or the deck plans need to be built before we know what they look like, and so there's a bit of backwards and forwards in this. So we're going to be looking at that during today's show. But yes, once Nautical Campaigns is finished, there is a book that I want to release based off of what happened in Nautical Campaigns. The playtesting went so well. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me bring this up for you here. The wrong way. The playtesting went so well with the Nautical Campaigns that was run by the amazing Mike Harris, who runs Game Master's Vault. The playtesting went so well that a lot of the mechanics, we went, well, hang on, this could be applied to this scenario or to that scenario as well. Let's add it all in. Well, not into this particular book because it's kind of finished. We will release a second book, which I'm not going to tell you too much on it, but let's just say it's something that I feel there has been a book that's come out recently, a couple months ago, which was very, very successful. But having read that book, I went, but it doesn't do what I wanted it to do. It doesn't solve certain fundamental questions that I have. So I think this is going to do that. All right, so there we go. That's the book that we're talking about. If you don't know what the book is, you can go and pre-order it on our website, www.greatgamemaster.com. Okay, back to questions. Next question, White Tiger 225 says, some light-hearted problems to throw at a modern-day group of players in a world with no fantastical elements. Well, none, basically. Okay, lovely. Light-hearted. All right, well, light-hearted to me, the first thing that comes into mind is, what if they find a dog, possibly a cat, but a dog more like, that just seems to want to go somewhere, but it's holding its own leash. Now, I've seen Labradors do this. It's very adorable. They hold their own leash when they go on to go for a walk, because someone has to hold the leash in order for me to go for a walk. So if I'm holding the leash, I can go for a walk. So the players could discover a dog that has a tag, and the tag leads it to a certain place, and they get there, and suddenly they discover that there's a murder that's happened, and the dog has come looking for assistance or for help. So you could do something along those lines. Alternatively, you could, in terms of lightheartedness, kids are always fun, especially if the group is assigned by an FBI agent. You must look after these kids for 24 hours, of course, and you've got all that kid stuff going on. Excuse me here, just you can see it's very, very hot. I don't know why. Anyway, all right, so that's that one. Terranatum asks, what is the link to the Great GM buttons? I can't seem to track down the link. Yes, they're not on Teespring. They will be on ghostfire.net. They should be on ghostfire.net. She is the artist who drew them, and once we had finished running them at Gen Con, basically as promo material, once we had finished doing that, it went onto her website. So ghostfire.net. Let me type that into the chat. I think it's ghostfire.net. Ghostfire.net, and you can go and have a look and ask them, where are the buttons? Okay, so have a look at that one. Next question, Grizzles, how to make it fun getting into a magic using class after just doing martial classes so far. How to make it fun getting into magic using class after just doing martial... Oh, I see. Okay, so you've only been playing martial characters, and now you're going to be getting into the magic using class. I think, as a player, when I look at magic, you have the fundamental build idea of power and destruction and all those kinds of things that go with it. But there are so many others, and I've seen them played so well. You go with the diviner who kind of has sixth sense and sort of tries to divine the future. That's very irritating for the GM if they're not well prepared, but it can be a lot of fun. But there are a whole bunch of others. There are 6 schools of magic, let alone the sorcerer and the warlock and the priest and the druid, you know, so there's lots and lots and lots of magical units, magical spaces. Perhaps look at playing a paladin first, where they've got a little bit of magic and a little bit of that martial, so that it's not just such a drop for you. On the other hand, I would just jump straight in and say, I'm going to play an enchanter, or I'm going to play a summoner, or I'm going to play an alterationist, someone who is a transmuter, or an abjurationist, or a necromancer for that matter. I would look at something that's different from the norm and see if you can make it and take it your own. That's what I would do. Okay, next question is from Dracone. I'm working on creating a drowned world where the dry land is in bubbles that float at the mercy of the currents. How do I write in an intriguing way? Well, already you've got bubble-like structures that float around. Your biggest challenge that I can see is once the adventurers leave those bubbles, how do they find them again? What are the markers? What are the telltale signs that that is where the city has now drifted to, or the world that they were in has now drifted to? So I would look at solving that problem first. Once you've solved that problem, you can then start to look at underwater encounters and things, and the Ghost of Saltmarsh book is very good for that. They've got amazing tables at the back of the book that talk about generating underwater encounters and creatures and plots and all kinds of things. So really have a look at that if you have access to it. If you don't have access to it, then you should head on over to our website, Oh, come on, master.com. Hello, computer. Head on over there and you can enter the prize, the competition to find Mama Saduk's treasure. And the winner and three subsequent runner-ups will each win a copy of that Ghost of Saltmarsh book. So that could be something to look out for. Right, questions. We have so many questions. Next question. Donovan Gibson says, do you have any tips on PC note-taking? I see a bunch of videos about GM notes, but not a whole lot about PC notes. PC notes, I think, are very important to do. Obviously, you're trying to keep track of what's going on. It's also dependent on what type of thing that you're doing. So if you're doing a murder mystery or you're investigating something where you are looking into the whole idea of a series of events, the notes need to be kept in chronological order. So you need to have, at 7th bell this happened, at 8th bell this happened, at 9th bell, so you can kind of keep track of where things fit in. If, on the other hand, it's more of just a campaign, I'm a spider diagram kind of person myself. I'll put a key NPC name in it, and then I will draw links to other NPCs with little arrows indicating whether they know each other, and little notes in those arrows. It can get quite complicated. But yes, it's important to take those kind of notes. And what is important to note down and what isn't important to note down? I've noticed, I have met some people who basically write down the dialogue, and they just keep shorthand of everything. That's wonderful. I think it's insane, but that is wonderful. On the other hand, I personally, again, I'll write down the key name of NPCs, and then I'll write down just a little bit of information. I won't write down what they look like or what they sound like. I will write down what they told us, or what we think they told us. So that's very short what I would do. I mean, there's a whole video that one can do on that. Congratulations on, yes, well, it's not Ghost of Saltmarsh, it's Great GM second season, which of course is Descent into Avernus, Blood War. I think it's going to be so much fun. I will show you that little trailer in a little bit. If you want to have a look at that, just say yes. I was going to go say yay or yes, and it came out as yes. Say that in the chat and I'll show you that trailer. Hoku says, hey guy, love your channel, thank you very much, glad you do. New DM and have inadvertently given my players powerful magic items at low level. What should I do? Nothing. Let them have fun with those powerful magical items. Let them see what they can do, but also I would make sure that the consequences of their actions become very obvious. That those magical items are disrupting the world or, you know, destroying the world that they are involved in, so that they get to the point where they're like, well, maybe we should actually just surrender these magical items. Alternatively, I would have someone come along and offer them money for it. That won't work, by the way, because they won't sell it, especially if you have a vendor coming up to them and saying, oh, I'll give you 1,000 gold for that magical sword. No, now it's worth 20,000 to me, and if you offered me 20,000, it would be worth 100,000. In other words, the players are going to invest more value in those magical items if you have someone try to buy them. The benefit of having someone try to buy them, though, is that now someone could try and steal them. And then, of course, when you do try to steal them, the players are aware that someone was there, there was a setup, they knew it was going to be happening, so when you have stolen those weapons, it becomes something of a point of pride to try and get it back. I wouldn't just retcon it unless, and this is entirely legal as well, by the way, you go to the player group and you say to them, listen, I made a mistake. The magical items I gave you are too powerful for your level. I am a new GM. So please, can we adjust them? Don't take them away. Adjust them down so that they're more level appropriate, or can I just replace them with other items and just give you a little bit of gold to compensate? Can I give you a castle? Speak to them openly and honestly. And if they say, no, we're quite happy with these magical items, well, then your party has spoken. And if all of them are happy with those magical items, well, now you've got a campaign that's got super powerful magical items floating around that low-level characters can get, and so you can build it even higher. Now, next question. Erikings1 says, when running a sandbox-style game, how do you inspire your players to go to big points of interest? Sandbox campaigns obviously have points of interest. That's still a story. We're still trying to talk about it. We're still trying to make it happen. How do we set those big points where the players are going to go there? We don't. We change it. If the players choose to go north and our big point was in the south, well, now it's moved to the north. I'm not saying you have the giant tower of Ak-Khazad where you want them to go and explore it and there's dungeons and stuff that you put inside it. I'm not saying that that suddenly moves from the south to the north. What I'm saying is now that they're journeying north, you see a very strange collection of towers. History check. Oh, you know that those towers are known as the towers of Salah Ducor. And Salah Ducor was a very famous, powerful magician. And now you've taken the adventure and all the stuff that you've planned for that tower in the south, and you transposed it to the tower in the north. In other words, the players can go where they like. Plot will always follow them. And again, is this railroading? No, it isn't. It's just keeping your sandbox flowing forward and not putting you as the GM under immense pressure to have to come up with adventures on the fly all the time. Sometimes it's good to just have a few stopgaps where you're bringing in adventures that you have planned already. Okay, there's lots of questions coming through. I'm going to ask you, please hold your questions for now, because I do, like I said, I'm under a huge amount of time pressure. So I'm going to do this because I think it's going to be a benefit to you to have a look at what I'm doing. Because it's, again, it's just inspiration and it's part of the creative writing. So let's see. All right, so I'm going to try this. Let's see what you can see. Okay, so there's a piece of paper, blank piece of paper that I have in front of me. And yes, the camera is autofocusing, so I'm going to stop that from doing that. You stop that, you horrid little autofocusing thing. I thought I turned you off anyway, and you should be off and set there. I'm convinced I said this beforehand. Anyway, all right, so there's a piece of paper. Okay, so that's set there. Why? There's the chat. You can see the chat. All right. So what I've got to do for the artist, for the book, as well as for myself in terms of planning out these ship schematics, is that I need to translate the ship schematic or the ship descriptor into something visual. Now, I am not an artist in the traditional sense of a pencil and paper. I probably haven't drawn on pencil and paper in a very, very, very long time. So I will continue to answer questions whilst I'm drawing, but I wanted to take you through this process because I think it's important for you as a game master, for you as someone who is working in this environment, to see the power of just doing a sketch and how you can make a descriptor become a lot more interesting. So this is just one particular technique. Now I'm going to go to the book. Let's do that. So you can see behind me, this is the book. This is the book with all of the different categories in it. Like I said, it is finished. So I'm going to go to the different types of ships. Here they are here. So let's draw the Dawnsar courier ship. Now, it's in yellow because it means we still have to tweak some of this stuff. But we're not looking at the stats right now. What we're looking at here is this description. Okay, we're looking at the description. And the description reads, because I think it's going to be too small on your screen, These twin-hulled ships, twin-hulled, okay, so we're talking catamaran type style, are unusual within the Elven fleet. They are fast. Magic runes carved into the twin hulls allow the ship to sail on the most massive single triangular sail that dominates the ship, giving it the moniker Fins Up. Okay, cool. All right, great. So we've got that, and I've made some notes. You can see my awful handwriting here. We've made some notes as to what this is. So it's a twin-hulled, magic rune-encrusted, single triangular sail. Okay, so top-down view, I would imagine, is going to be something like this. Okay, ships are shaped this way for a reason. It allows them to cut through the water relatively easily. Oops. Okay, this is why I'm not the artist, as you can see. Okay, so that's the top-down view of the ship with its twin catamaran style hull. Right. Then usually catamarans have something that sits over the top of them. There's a single mast that's going to dominate, and that's a triangular mast, so it's probably going to sit akimbo like that. There would be some kind of control deck type of thing, and then they would have rudders at the back. This is usually how it works, which then can turn around and do all that kind of stuff. So we've got some interesting things happening there in terms of this sort of shape, this thing. Now, when I think of an Elvish sail, I often think of the mast, which ends like that, and then I tend to think of I've drawn too close to the page, to the edge of the page. All right, I tend to think of Elvish sails as being almost like Japanese junk style sails. So we've got a triangular sail, okay, big triangular sail, which is going to do something like that. All right, so that would be the basic shape of the triangular sail, if you can see that. So that's the idea. But then, and then you would have your catamaran double hull underneath. Okay. Now, sometimes they have quite deep fins underneath the water. We wouldn't see that. All right, to prevent them from tipping over in high speed. So we'll do something like that. Of course, it's twin-hulled. So there's the other hull over there. Not that we need to worry about that. I would maybe cleft or cut out the sort of bite marks over there. Okay, and then we would have this long arm of wood or bamboo perhaps that would stick in like that, and then we would have rigging which comes down to the belaying pins that hold it nice and tight. Then I would have the aft deck where our helmsman is going to sit, basically there. So we've got our one window there for the captain to sit in. If I go back, crew wise, they've got 5 crew, so it's not very big. So there we are. But I kind of feel they need to have more of a pointed front. And yes, I read the comment there, thin, narrow hulls with a superstructure to contain cargo and personal space. Yes, I agree. I think that if we make these more like skates and not like hulls, I think that would work better. So then it's almost like it's a skating on the water. I think that could be quite fun. So then that means that the front half, oh, that's an interesting shape. If we do that kind of curve. Okay. So this is now our hull in there and there, and then they would cut it off there. Alright, so I kind of like that shape that's starting to transpire there. And then I would say most ships' figureheads are very important. They remain important in the game setting as well. So we'd have the figurehead of an Elvish warrior, perhaps. And I would like their wings to extend back almost. I mean, this is a very fast ship. So if we have their wings extending all the way back, tip that off. Something like that. And I kind of feel, though, that the Elvish ships need to have something here in the whole section as well. So I wonder if the back shouldn't curve, or maybe just come up straight like that. So the whole thing is in keeping with this sort of angular style look. Do we even need that bottom piece? Yes, I think we do. Alright, so then the porthole changes to over there. I very seldom use an eraser, by the way, because I don't have one. Okay, I think this could work, and then we curve the sail onto that point. Something like this, maybe, with those wings coming in. Alright, let's go back to some questions. Let's go back to some questions whilst we are pottering around with this design. Where are we now? Maybe the thick netting of some kind of cloth. Yes, absolutely. Keeps the weight down too. What about the veins in the sail to make it look like lead? That's not a bad idea. Again, that's the junker style. So how could we make it... Would we do something like that? That could work. That could work. And then this would need the same sort of look, I imagine. Okay, I don't know what this rise is here in the front, but it kind of feels like it's needed. It's kind of working for me, I think. Maybe the duality of the figureheads, they're not both the same, but they complement each other. That's a cool idea. That's a cool idea. So figurehead number 1 here might be, let's say they are an elf with flowing hair, boom, 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 and they have their hands stretched out behind them. Look at how bad this is. And the hair, of course, covers up all the unmentionable bits. Could be braided, something like that, and then they have the wings out the back to give them that sense of movement. And then the other one could be perhaps an elf with a cool looking helmet on for protection. So it's the mother of the sea, perhaps, and then the warrior of the sea doing their thing. I don't know what that would look like. Also sort of reaching back. That could work. I think that could work quite nicely. Okay. Let's see. Where are we now? What about the sails to make it... What about veins in the sail to make it look like more like a leaf? Yeah, we could certainly add in... some sort of herringbone pattern to make it look more like a leaf. I think we could do that. I don't think you can see that on the camera. There we go. You can see the herringbone pattern. I like it. I like to think Elvish vessels try to mirror aspect of nature. Yeah, look, it depends on the elves in your world as well. I think this is looking a little bit organic. As someone has mentioned, who was it who mentioned? The design of the catamaran, says Michael Pinkard, does not require a keel. Well, there we go. So no keel. We will remove the keel from the illustration by adding water and scratching out the keel. Okay, I like it. That's good. Just thought about having a living tree as a boat. It's an interesting idea, definitely. Xander Green says, suggestions on how to make a shy new player more comfortable with doing solo activities. I'm hoping to help my very friend get out of their shell and possibly GM in the future. GMing in the future, I mean, that's a lofty goal. I think it's a really great goal, and I think it's definitely something to pursue and to follow up and to try and make happen. I think that's very important. So how do you try and get them out of their shell? Well, I would encourage them to, well, not encourage, I mean, talk to them out of the game and say, hey, listen, you're doing such a great job. I think it's really cool. I want to explore your character's backstory. Do you mind? Find out, because sometimes people don't like being put into the spotlight and it can be too much, and we can't force anyone to take the spotlight. So bear that in mind. We don't want to overload someone with new stuff. So keep that at the back of your head. Next question is Mount at 1000 says, I'm fine, I'm very hot. It's very hot here in Tokyo. Honorable 596, I see things and I want to someday replicate them. Even if I never get around to doing it, it's still fun to come up with these things. Any advice for running a small campaign set entirely in a junkyard? Junkyards are very interesting spaces, because when you look at the contents of a junkyard, it could be so many different things. Is it an aeroplane junkyard? Is it a vehicle junkyard? Is it just a rubbish tip? What is it? I mean, it's all of these different things that get just, you can choose what you want to play and how you want to do it, and that sort of thing. What kind of monsters are inside a junkyard? Junk rats, junk dogs, big mechanical golems that have been created out of the junkyard parts. There are those kinds of things, but then there's also potential, scientists coming to examine the strange goop that started to form in the center of the junkyard. I mean, you can really have fun with playing with the ideas of what does a junkyard accumulate and what does each of those translate into in terms of an adventure. I think that could be a lot of fun. Durakan says, what is the best type of god to use in a game as an NPC? Durakan, I'm going to stop your question right there. I don't know the gods of Dungeons & Dragons, if that's the system that you're referring to. I have my own gods, which I created myself, and there's a reason why I did it. I created my own pantheon because I felt that the gods that were in the books didn't fulfill the need that I had. I had a need for my gods to be able to encourage my players to do things, to motivate them to do things, rather than to be this sort of non-existent deity. So I have gods that are like, for example, the god of self-indulgence. So when my players start to become murder hobos and they start to perhaps fall off the tracks, I can now have a priest of Reft come in and say, oh yes, you are doing so well. Our God is so pleased with the way in which you just murder everyone without any consideration of the influence on themselves. You must be worshippers of Reft. Here is a small coin to make sure that you continue on your wanton rampage of evil and destruction. I use the gods as another tool in my campaigns, basically to guide the players so that if they start wandering off the path, they will get a visit by one of their representatives, a monk or a priest or whatever, who will then see those kinds of things. So definitely, that's where I go. So what gods would I suggest you use? I would make sure that you use gods that are going to help your campaign story advance. So there we go. That's what I would do there. Thoughts, next question. Thoughts on, no, that's not a question. Put the word question in front of your question if you're asking one. Atom Ogre Boatswain says, what are your thoughts on connecting wish magic to the balance of the universe and reality, and having a risk of destabilizing the universe or a more significant consequence? Wishes are really powerful. They really are, and there is a huge risk that they will, for all intents and purposes, destabilize your game. The challenge, I believe, is the fact that these spells exist. Now, whenever a player uses a wish in my game, I have actually had players go, we have a wish, but we're not going to use it because we know you. I will always take the wish as it was spoken and then translate that literally. So if the wish is poorly worded and they go, oh, I wish that dragons didn't exist anymore. Oh, okay. You wish that dragons didn't exist anymore. I will take you and your party to a place and a time where dragons no longer exist. That's a post-apocalyptic future where all life doesn't exist. Or perhaps that's a time even earlier than most civilizations when dragons are still giant lizards wandering around in a swamp. Dragons don't yet exist, and I'll try and make it so that my players ultimately cause the dragons to come into existence. Just a weird way in which my brain kind of works. So just be aware of that. Be very, very aware that those are some of the consequences that can come about from the wish spell. So I would never allow the characters, oh, I wish the planet just stopped existing. I would make them stop existing, because the planet has technically for them stopped existing. So I always look at it from that point of view. It's definitely the way that I like to run things. Okay, let's go here. I've got the next ship I want to have a look at, the Minbay, which is the warship of the elves. Now, this is a hippogriff aircraft carrier as far as the story is concerned. So it launches 10 hippogriffs. It's got 20 on board. It launches them into the air when it is about to engage in combat with other ships. 2 long hulls against, again, it's catamaran-like, are bridged with the upper decks that have large doors running the length of the ship. These doors open to allow aerial units of the ship to fly out. So that's going to be a lot of fun to work with. I think, again, we've got our double hull idea, so we're going to do that again. But we've got the idea of these thin hulls, which I quite like. So now we have this opportunity to drop them in like that. Okay, perfect. And again, we're going to go with this. I quite like this curved idea at the back. So the holes are not straight on. Okay. And then let's just check how many crew does it have. It has 80 crew and it is 140 feet long. All right, so that I don't think is terrible. Again, we've got to kind of go back and drop things in there. So whilst I'm busy drawing this, I'm going to answer some more questions. Paul Schreiber says, their world and the PC's well-being, they need help. Wait, Where? I don't understand how that question works. Is it part 2? Let me just scroll up quickly. Yes. Off the top of my head, if the god is very focused on their concerns, he like them and then focus on themselves. But if the god instead cares about their world and the PC's well-being, then he just help them and not help himself. Okay, I'm not sure if that's a question. It's an answer to the question, perhaps, which is brilliant. Okay, next one. Jordan Beard says, one of the campaigns I run is taking a small break. I don't want them to forget things or people. Was debating making a small packet of this arc. Don't want to overload. Any recommendations? Well, I think that's very kind of you to want to do that in the first place. To want them to be able to have access to a little updater. I think that's super awesome. So I would thoroughly recommend that. Yes. In terms of what to include, I would just make it bullet points and I would make it a sentence. I wouldn't make it too much, and I wouldn't do it myself. I would get your players around the table. If you're running out of time, I would get your players and say, right, we're going to do a little packet. We're going to do a little reminder, almost like a memory video, if you like, and we're going to talk about what happened in the campaign. So that is what I would do there. I wouldn't do it myself, because otherwise you run the risk of giving them inside information as the GM that they might not necessarily know about. So yeah, that's what I would look to do there. Okay, I've got this catamaran going. We now know that we don't need a deep hull. Doing the profile now. I kind of like this view. I like this style of the shape of the mouth, because I think the book has got it wrong. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to do something like that, and then it comes up here. All right, because it is a warship. And the doors are actually going to be here at the front. These bay doors. So it's almost like they're going to fly out that end, and then at this back end is where they would then fly back in again and they would land. So we've got to make sure that that's there. Again, we're going to go with the upper wing of the last ship sort of style that we had. There's a command deck which sits higher up. Okay, and then we've got 3 masts, so 1, 2, and then the little lateen at the back, and they're all triangular. So I'm going to start with the first one, and we're going to have that coming out to there and around that way. Just sketching it out very roughly. That's for that one. This one would sit like that. Boom, boom. So this little sail that I've drawn here, which you can't really see very well, this little sail would be the same as this one sail here in terms of scale. So we get a sense of just how big these ships are. Okay, and then we've got that out to there. And then there's another little one in there. That's going to do that. I think that then they would have some kind of reinforced hull here at the front. I don't think they have a battering ram, so that's fine. They would have portals, as they call them, and possibly a second deck as well. There are 80 crew on this ship, so it's quite big. And then at the back we have the tiller. Oh, I don't like that shape. Don't like that shape either. I don't like it. All right, so something like that. It's a bit of a mess, and that's why I'm not the artist. But anyway, all right, so that's 2 ships. That's what I wanted to do. I said to the artist I would give him 2 ships, so we're kind of there. Let's get some creative writing going, since we're going for an hour. It's so short, I know, but creative writing, what I want you to do in the next 10 minutes, because we don't really have a lot of time left. Or should we skip creative writing this week? Should we skip creative writing this week? I think we're going to skip it this week. I hate to say it, but I think we're going to skip it. We're skipping it. Definitely skipping it. Yes. Okay. So we're going to skip it. Let's just finish up with some questions then. The next one I see is Mount at 1000. How do I keep the PCs? I'm busy. How do I keep the PCs busy when I'm traveling without throwing combat after combat? Oh, absolutely. So the entire idea of travel is up to you as the game master. Do you want it to involve something? Do you want it to be useful? If not, move on. It is a narrative montage. You and your party leave the spaceport, and for the next 3 weeks you sail into the void. Are any of you doing anything specifically during that 3-week period? Everybody will have something that they want to do invariably, or they might all go, no, we just do usual ship kind of duties, or my character practices with their longsword, or they do this or that. That's all great, and then you jump forward. If you want an encounter, you can throw in an encounter. If you don't want an encounter, don't have an encounter. Let the PCs talk amongst themselves. Let them share. You can say one night at dinner that you're all sitting around the same table. What do you talk about? So prompt them to have role-playing experiences rather than just combat experiences. That makes for a much more interesting situation, as far as I'm concerned. I think that's really useful. So bear that in mind. James Tension says, ever considered each different race not only having their own ship styles, but weapons defense systems as well? So yes, for the book, we have got Elvish ships, Orcish ships, Dwarvish ships, Gnomish ships, human ships, merfolk ships, Seabold ships, Goblin ships, Lizard folk ships, Sahaugan ships. We've looked at a whole bunch of different races. All of the ships will look different from one another. In terms of the weapons, however, this is where it becomes a bit of a challenge. So at the moment, we have ballista, we have mangonels, we have trebuchets, because, well, why not? And then we have harpoons, which is the aquatic equivalent. And the biggest challenge that we had when we were designing this entire system, and I say we, it was myself, my editor, Mike Harris, and all of the playtesters, the biggest challenge we had was aquatic ships have so much of an advantage over surface ships. Aquatic ships, if this is the surface ship floating along, an aquatic ship can park itself underneath and just fire away into the bottom of that surface ship. And unless the surface ship has some kind of deterrent, it's not going to be able to prevail. So we needed a way in which we could balance things out. And one of the things that we said was, A, the range of those harpoons is going to be a lot closer. It's going to be a lot less than a trebuchet, which is 1,200 feet. So point number one. Point number two is that the damage dealt by a harpoon is going to be a lot less. There's a lot more resistance for the harpoon to travel through. And yes, I know they are deadly at short range. Usually it's at short range, 30 feet, 50 feet maximum type of thing. So we've tried to balance it out as much as possible on that, on those lines where we've said, okay, well, most aquatic ships have got harpoons, some of them that do surface, because there are mechanics on submarine ships surfacing. Sandother Green, thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So thank you. Yeah, so we've got a whole bunch of stuff. Submersibles. Well, no, they're submarines, and they can rise to the surface. They can't actually... Well, submersible, I suppose is the right word. They're not designed for starting at the top and then going underneath. Now, there is the Nomus ship, which has an interesting set of mechanics. It's a hopper, so it hops on the water, and occasionally the ship will fail its dexterity check so it actually sinks below the water, in which case then the occupants have got 10 minutes to get it back up onto the surface before it fills up with water and then completely drowns. But again, that's a Nomus ship. It's not designed for mass combat, although it can, if it hops and lands on top of another ship, start drilling into that ship. So there's some fun stuff in there. Like I said, we've got aircraft carriers that launch hippogriffs, pegasi, giant eagles, giant seahorses, giant octopi. I mean, we just had so much fun coming up with all of these different things for each of the different races. So yes, definitely. Lester Vinghale says, in a plague-ridden village, what other dramatic events would you suggest to add to the situation? Plague-ridden oftentimes means that there is a certain class of individual who does not have the plague. They hoard things like food. You get looters who go and find the bodies of those that are plague-ridden and unable to defend their homes and loot their homes. So that's already two potential areas to look at where the nobles are not helping in any shape or form. But, they're hoarding all of this food, or they're hoarding the medicine, and so the characters have to go and get the medicine from the nobles, or there's lootables going on, people looting the houses of allies and things, so that's definitely something important to have a look at as well. I mean, again, plague is such a scary thing. The more important thing is, how do the PCs avoid getting it? And once they've got it, how do they deal with it? How do they survive that? Now, if you turn to Star Trek for inspiration, Star Trek in, I think, almost every single series, there has always been a contagion or a plague of some kind that the ship's doctor, in one form or another, manages to overcome in the last moment whilst being infected with it. Usually that's how it plays out. So that's something to look at. Choose a series, find an episode where the doctor's listed as saving the day, and you've generally got a plague that they're busy dealing with. Next question. Grizzle says, will some races have some sort of cloth that the others are not able to replicate? Will some races have some sort of cloth that the others are not able to replicate? What might this cause? Well, look, when you've got the option of a unique item, adamantium, mithril, for example, unique cloth, there's a supply and demand. Do they sell it to others? Do they hoard it for themselves? Again, let's go back to Star Trek. In Star Trek, there was the cloaking device that the Klingons had managed to develop, which I always thought was a little bit odd for a race that required honor and the glory of combat. To me, it was much better suited that the Romulans developed it and then the Klingons took it from them. Anyway, it didn't happen that way. What happened was that the Klingons gave cloaking technology to the Romulans, and the Romulans gave the D6 class cruiser design to the Klingons. There's some interesting Star Trek lore for you. Regardless of how it happened, there was a trade that happened, and both empires became stronger. So when you're dealing with a unique commodity, unobtainium as Avatar might have us call it, when you're dealing with something like that, always look at what does it do to the balance of power. Who holds the power and what power does it give them? Is it purely financial, or is it something that has more to it? Is it the cloth enables warriors to regenerate faster? All those kinds of things. So I would definitely add that in. Draconian says, when will the book be available for purchase? Well, it's available on pre-sale at the moment on our website. When the pre-sale is basically to raise money. However, and this is just between you, me, and the 80 people watching this channel at the moment, I think we're going to launch a Kickstarter for this book. Now, we did say that the book was supposed to be released at the end of October, which doesn't give us a lot of time for a Kickstarter since it's already September. The challenge is time. As I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I don't have a huge amount of time, but then once you start looking at what does book cost layout, what are the costs of those layouts and things, so we could farm it out to somebody else to do the layout, which, to be perfectly frank with you, as much as I don't mind doing layout, it's not my occupation, it's not my job. So it is something that I will do because I have to. If we can farm that out, then that might be a way to go. So we might do a Kickstarter on that. Either way, end of October is our definite deadline for the book to come out one way or another. What people will do if the book doesn't come out by then is we will be able to send them the Word document, so at least you have it, and then the prettified version with all of the artwork and all of the deck plans and all the layout and stuff will come out later on after that. Anyway, that's just my musings of that. Okay, we've got 4 minutes. So Prof Peeler says, I often feel very reluctant to use rare consumable magical items, as they are very rare and expensive, but due to never using them, they effectively become worthless. Yes, you're quite right. Do you know of a way to make it feel less wasteful, or could these items be designed differently to remedy that? Immediately off of the top of my head, my suggestion would be consumable magical items. As you say, they're rare. Oh, we need the feather of a phoenix that was born on the full moon. Well, how many bloody birds were born on the full moon? And how many phoenixes are going to get plucked to death on the off chance that their feathers were the right ones? So I would have rare magical items that are consumed in their use. I would have them in the consumption bond with the user. And so the user gets a tattoo inscribed upon their person somewhere, and that allows them to replicate what that rare element did at a cost. The cost, I would say, would be a percentage of their constitution points. Let's go all the way back to 2nd edition Dungeons & Dragons, where the constitution can be used as a cost mechanism. So if you want to use that rare magic item that was consumed once, if you want to use it again, you have the tattoo. It says that you own it, you've consumed it. And I know that consumable doesn't mean as actually eaten, it means as in used up, but I'm saying make it that it is actually consumed. They can then use that time and time again, but there is a risk that their constitution will drop each time they use it because they're now using their own life force rather than this rare magical item life force. Anyway, that's an idea. That's just an idea. They could do it once a day, says Gorilla Red. Absolutely, they certainly could. Or is it Red? There we are. One last question. Peter Clark. No, just dropped off. Where did it go? Peter Clark says, how do I ensure that my players love my NPC? I'm working on a homebrew and I want to make sure my characters love their patron for when he inevitably dies. Yes, I've done a series of videos on this, and you can go and have a look for that on the YouTube channel. I think it's called How to Get Your Players to Fall in Love with Your NPCs, or Making NPCs Valuable, something along those lines. Now I have forgotten. Okay, so hold your questions, guys. We are done for the stream for now. But before I go, okay. The archive is happening. The searchable database is happening. If you want to be part of it, please head on over to discord.gg twitch.gg/greatgm. Head on over there. Find the channel that is called, now it's gone straight out of my head because of course I closed it for the stream, so I didn't get bothered. It is called, where the hell has it gone now? Of course I can't find it. It's somewhere in there. Anyway, look for it. Look for the thing. There's a challenge for you. Where did we put it? Have they moved it? Sometimes the web goblins move things. That's what I'm going to rely on for today, as to why I cannot find this thing. Anyway, okay, it's in there. I swear it's in there. Building Hive Mind is what it's called. Building Hive Mind. They changed the name. Okay, so Building Hive Mind. Go and have a look for that. We're looking for volunteers. Now, it's a very simple process. It is a very simple process that we're going to go through in terms of turning this into a searchable database. A searchable database. So you will go to the website, you'll type in love, NPCs, players, like, whatever combination of keywords you want, and then that database is going to bring up all of the videos, hopefully, with timestamps as to where I was talking about that in those particular videos. So you can then click on the one that says getting NPCs to fall in love with your players or vice versa, and you can see the timestamp, you can watch it, you can then go, no, exactly for me, go back to the database and find it. So we're looking for volunteers. Join us there. It's very, very simple. I send you transcripts of the video, and then you just choose the keywords that you think is relevant, plus the timestamp, and then you send that back to me as an Excel document, and we give it to the web goblin to start adding. So that's the next that's just another project that we're busy working on to try and make this thing happen. So until next time, I thank you all for being part of this. Very short. It felt so short. I mean, 1 hour has just gone, whoa, how did that happen? Okay, great. Thank you so much for your input. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you for being here. Thank you for those donations. I really do appreciate it. I truly, 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 truly do. Until next time, however, until next time, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.